Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to a follow-up session of C.L. Aldridge Art Coloring Adventures. This is where I am going to follow up on what I started on my Sunday live stream, and in this particular case it was in a book by artist Lydia Hess called Sacred Angels, and the angel that we were coloring is the angel of intuition. Now she lives under the sea, and this is how far I got with her on Sunday. Actually, this is first layers of everything with a little bit of tweaking so far on the mermaid itself. And then I started to play with how I wanted the sunlight to be shining through the water. So, for those of you who might not know me, my name is Christine Aldridge. I am an artist. I do draw my own line of coloring books. I do have, there's 8, 9, 10, 11, plus I'm in both treasuries. There's actually 12 books now because the newest one is Dragons, Flowers, and Mandalas. Oh my. All of my books are available through Amazon worldwide. They are also available at Etsy. The Etsy address will show up right here. And should you choose to, you can follow me on social media. I am on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all as C.L. Aldridge Art. In addition, I do have Pinterest and a bunch of other stuff. LinkedIn, all of those are out there as well. I also do have fabric lines and merch. Those are available in shops at both Redbubble and Spoonflower. Gift wrap, things like that. Let's get started. I did change up my little snaky guy here to, or he's an eel. I tried to make him a little more purple. I discovered too late that he wraps around her, and I might have made him an entire contrasting color, but I kind of like that he looks like he's a part of her. So anyway, what I did up here is I used this sea blue very lightly. I used the apple green. I used a little yellow. I wanted to make it look like the sun was streaming through, and which is why I have both the sun yellow and the sea blue. So using that same idea, I wanted to add a little bit of yellow just down in these areas along these beams. Which Lydia has so kindly drawn in for us. And where I used some green up here, I am not going to use it down here because this is deeper water. And so technically it would be blue. Now I can always add green, and I'm being very, very light. Notice that I'm coloring with the side. I'm using, by the way, Derwent Inktense. I'm coloring with the side of the pencils. Now, Inktense is, of course, activated with ink, or activated with water. Sorry, it's ink pigment activated with water. And so I don't want to be too heavy-handed with it. because I want it to be a light blue to start out with. I can always add more color, but if I get the water too dark to begin with, it won't look quite right, and we'll lose our mermaid in all that blue. We may not want to do that. I'm going to try it in just that one section and see how that is for pigment laydown. So I am just going to start up here with the yellow. I want it to look like beams running through the water. And I am just sort of going back and forth. I'm not going to worry if I go over these little fish a little bit. And one of the things about it is when you are light with your pencil, it gives you this sort of rippled effect, which actually is perfect for water. If you were trying to color something solid, this would not be, I would not have nearly enough pigment on the page. But since I'm trying to color water, and water is sort of ripply looking, it actually works better. All right, so that is, that is sort of an interesting transition between here and there. Remember, this is only a first coat. Why I want to do the blue first is because I want to be able to pick out the little fish without having to worry about being so fussy about missing them with the background color. Because when you're coloring backgrounds, they're big and you like to be able to cover a lot of space. And the fish are easier to do if you can concentrate on them a little more tightly. So how is everybody? I do hope that you are having a good week, that you are doing what you need to do to keep yourself and your family well, or fed, or whatever challenge you are facing today. If the news is too much, turn it off. If the world just seems like a hostile place right now, just make it go away. Get lost in coloring something pretty. If cooking is your thing, if gardening is your thing. I'm adding just a bit of a glow around her. Now I'm going to go back up here just for the sake of continuity, and I'm going to add just a tad of the apple green. Now I'm adding some blue on top of that, really just mixing the colors all together. I like this sort of mottled look that you get. And notice you don't, I'm not being too fussy about mixing the colors. My brush is very light. This is, it's It's pretty good paper, but not great paper. I mean, it's, you know, color book paper. I need to add some more blue up here. Now these are areas that I already did, so they're dry. I'm just adding just a little bit of a darker blue. This is the sea blue. Just along and I'll add some of the, of course that is closer to the surface up there. Just want to make that, you know, transition a little bit darker down here at the bottom. If you notice your brush starting to get dry, just squeeze a little bit more water. Not on the page. I don't ever squeeze on the page. I squeeze on my because otherwise you could end up with a blob of water on your page, and you don't want that to happen. One of the things that I would like to learn to do, and I am, of course, I am learning to color just like all of you. One of the things that I would very much like to learn to do is to color in a way where you're not going for full coverage. You know, where you've seen people color with hints of color. A good person who does that is Karen at Zucchini Kitty. Another one who can do it is Chris Chang. So I'm trying hard to, oops, I see what the problem is. With this one, I never activated it at all. Now, if you're quick, and like I got it on the wing, if you're really quick, you can brush it back off. But if you're not, don't panic, because the eye doesn't really see that stuff anyway. Okay. And just a little bit. Just here and there. Of that apple green. I mean, you can hardly even see that, but it will show up. Inktense is just like magic on the page. And once it is dried, you can't move it. You can only add to it, or you can cover it up with paint, or, you know, if there's something that you did that is a mistake, don't be afraid to get out your acrylic paint and just paint over it. or go over it with a gel pen, or with an ink pen, or with an alcohol marker even. Okay. So these are sort of meant to be sun rays going through the water. They're not perfect yet, but by the time I get done, they will be. I hope. Okay. Now, was working on her hair, and I wanted to make her a redhead. The colors got a little mottled when I did it. I love the way that the golden wings turned out, but I want her hair to be a little richer in color. And so I am going to go back to the baked earth color, which is what I used. And I'm just going to darken up parts of the hair. And I may add a bit of let's see here. I'm just going to say I may add a bit of orange. It could be let's make sure that this is going to show the way I want it to. Because I really just want to make this darker. But if I need to add some orange to brighten it up a little, I can do that as well. See, it always looks good when it's wet, but when then it dries and it gets a little dull. So I'm going to try that and see if that is what I need, or if I need to step it up into maybe an orange with a darker brown. I think I may need I may need to add a darker brown under here for some actual contrasts. So that was my cat walking by. And of course she walks right through whatever it is that might be in her way. Now, one of the viewers had an interesting idea about the skin color of our mermaid, and I also might be able to incorporate my idea of coloring without coloring in entirely all of the spaces with it. And her idea was to make the skin purple, which sounds a little odd, but bear with me. We're going to give it a try and see what we can do. So I'm going to pull the mauve. All right, so there's the mauve. So I think what I want to do is I just want to color the highlights, or the dark spots. You know what I mean? The ink spots. In for a penny, in for a pound. Okay. Now, I'm going to move this, and I'm just going to go yep, and yep, and yep. Okay, and do the same thing here. Now, I have no idea if this will work or not, but we are going to find out. I think part of the problem is that I've got the, there we go, I've got the camera too high. Which is why it looks a little blurry to me. All right, so let's see. Now I want to just fade that. Come on, fade. Fade. Just fade. So let's see if that will fade along that line. All right, now I'm going to learn from what I just did. I'm going to wet this outside area first so that I can get that fade. And then, now even though I'm breaking my own rule, because I'll say don't go back and forth in this scrubbing motion, sometimes you need to for a faded type blend. Just remember that if you do, you need to be very, very light with it and very, very cautious. Okay? I am liking that a lot. All right. I am liking that a lot. We just learned something. Okay. I love it when a plan comes together. I do. I do. And don't be afraid to brush off. You know, that's what I keep this over here for, is so I can brush off. Once again, I can always add more color. I just cannot take it away. Okay. Holding my breath, making sure we can pull it. I really like the way that neck and face turned out, and that arm. My goodness. Okay. Ooh, ooh. Okay. Not too far, just like that. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to wait to do this side until this side dries just a little bit, so that they don't actually blend. Well, they shouldn't blend together. So, oh yeah, I like that. Oh, oh. I'm going to roll it over so I can get my best angle on it. And when I mean my best angle, I mean the best angle for me to work at it. Okay. Now right now it's going to all look purple. But when it dries, I think it'll go back fairly white there in the center. I think it looks dark because it's really wet now. Okay. Oh, we're gonna let that dry. I'll be right back. Oh no. What do you do? What do you do when there's two things? What do you do when there's two things? She says, oh, but this is so much more satisfying. I can rip this. Okay, and we are back, and it is dry, and I'm not happy right here where it got a little close together, but overall, for a first try of a new experiment, I am going to count it as a win. I just realized, of course, that her hand probably should have a little color on it as well. So let's add, now I'm going to come from the top. Just adding a little bit in there. And probably on the other hand as well, here in the palm. Might as well give her some purple fingers. Just keeping it very light. Okay. Now, I did want to show you how you can go back and add some color right in here now that it is completely dry. Zooming back in. Make sure the focus is good, and so now I've got the apple green. I'm just going to add, and I'm using the apple green only because this green aquamarine is such a strong color. And the apple is a little more sun-like. Maybe I'll add just a couple of little dashes here and there of the yellow. It doesn't even look like I put anything down, but as you'll see here in just a second, it doesn't take very much to just sort of add some streaks of the light in there. Okay. And that's really all I wanted to do. Now, obviously, we are going to do, you know, she's going to have eyes and lips, and we'll do the pearls and all of that. But those are details that I want to do with a different medium and later. So let's go back to this hair. Now, I'm going to pull the red oxide. Now, the red oxide, in looking at the swatches of these, this is the baked earth. Now, this is what I used on her hair, right? But it's not, because I'd put the saddle brown under it, it's not very bright. But the red oxide is, it's a very strong color. So I'm going to use it, but I'm going to use it very sparingly. And I am also going to pull in the willow brown. So I don't want to run into the same problem that I had with the modeling of colors. So I'm going to do the red oxide first. And I'm really only going along the bottom of some of these curves. I don't want to do too much. Because it's very easy to get carried away with the amount of pigment that you add, and near impossible to bring it back. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's barely possible to bring it back. I've brought stuff back from the brink of disaster. But it's easier to not make those mistakes. All right, so you can see that is a very strong color. But it's ideal for our red-haired intuition angel. There we go. All right, I like that a little better. Okay. Yeah, just that little extra depth of color really does well. Okay, so I've been asked, and I didn't even use the willow, did I? I will if I need to. Been asking myself, what color can I use to make the sand look sandy? And the problem, of course, is that there just isn't a good sand color in Inktense. But I may use that saddle brown very lightly to see if I can make it work. Okay, so here's the saddle brown. Once again, the sand does not need to be any kind of brown. If you wanted your sand to be, you know, to reflect the watercolors, which we may yet do, but I am just being super, super light with this. Maybe a little bit darker up here where some of this stuff is growing out of it, or where it might be being shaded by seashells. Reminds me of that phrase, she sells seashells down by the seashore. The key is that if you don't have an ideal color, you've got a couple of choices. You could find something in the set and sort of make it work, you know, try it. Or you could go to colored pencils or to your markers or to, you know, any other medium that you might have that does have the color that you want. You don't have to, you know, just because you are coloring a piece using Inktense doesn't mean that everything on it has to be Inktense. It could be other things. So that is, okay, now let me also add just a tiny bit of the Sicilian Yellow. And the reason why I picked the Sicilian is because it has a bit more of a kind of creamy, melony tone to it. So adding just a little bit of that sort of creamy yellow. May give my sand just the color that I'm looking for. And I'm not, you know, I'm not putting it everywhere, just sort of lightly adding it in a couple places. Once again, I'm going for that mottled, you know, kind of look. It's looking pretty sandy from here. May have been a good choice. I like it. But coloring is so much fun. You know, it's one of the reasons why I draw. I get the opportunity to see what you guys do with my art. And hopefully Lydia Hess somewhere, wherever she is, I don't know her, but I like her art, somehow gets to see what other people do with it. It gives a nice sandy color. So just experiment around with your colors and see if you can get something and make it work. Still working on this hair, but I want to sort of darken it up underneath her face, and then also over here on this side where it comes out from the back of her neck. So that would be a darker patch right there. I don't want to go overboard with this. Just want to add just a touch of that darker color to just sort of richen it up. I say that, but I don't think richen it up is a, somehow I don't think that's correct English. Okay. So now let's talk about some of these seaweedy type items. Whereas I used a ton of blue greens here. Here I want to use like kelp greens. Because after all, it's sea kelp, right? But, oops. Here I am trying to find pages. So, for sea kelp, my yellow greens are my Ionian green, which represents the dark. So let me find that. The felt green, the light olive, the spring green, the fern, and the leaf green. So, and then in addition to these, oops, I have my ever trusty, even though it is technically a, it is still a yellow green, I've got the apple green. Yeah. So I'm going to start up here, and I am going to sort of make just the very tips of these very apple green, dark, and then I will go down to the bottom with my Ionian green. And I want to bring these up because of course it's going to be darkest down here at the bottom. And in these areas that are sort of between the folds, where the kelp is bended over each other. Or, yeah, bending over each other. And coming up. And then I can use a lighter green. The light olive is pretty dark. The leaf green is, I think the fern, well, the felt green is the lightest. So I'm going to come with the felt green. Down just a few more of these. And then I will switch yeah, the fern green is the lightest. The leaf green is the one I want to come up off the Ionian green. So down here in these areas in the bottom of the kelp, all right, and then I'm going to add the, I'm actually going to add the fern green I'm also being very light with the color up here as we get to the top, because it's getting closer to the surface of the water, which we have to assume is somewhere right around up here, since this is where the light is entering. So let's see how I do with this. You just have to, when you're thinking about light, if you're coloring with, shading, once again, I'll be the first one to tell you that you do not have to use shading of any kind straight coloring with your markers or whatever is absolutely fine. You can also do just a ton of beautiful effects, straight coloring with markers, and then using gel pens and, you know, throwing in some highlights here and there. Anne at A Colorful Life does that amazingly, as I believe does Kate and a couple of others at Kate's Coloring Haven. I'm sure there are a number of channels. Lisa's Coloring Corner does straight coloring most of the time. It's beautiful. So there's nothing wrong with it. And I do it. I've certainly done it on a ton of drawings. There's videos for it. So I'm just... Notice I'm just... I happen to have a wadded up paper. It's cleaning something. I don't know what it was. But I've got a wadded up paper towel. So I'm likely to dab on just about anything. Okay. So you see you can see all those different colored greens in there. I do have my official cloth. Okay. All right, so that is how that one looks, sort of a little more bright, and I'll fix that. It's too bright up here on this side, but let's work on a shell. Shells. Well, shells are a lot of different colors. Some of them are gray, and the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to lay down on my entire shell a layer of white. This is a very light Payne's gray, right? So I'm just, and I mean I am being very light with it, right? I am just literally letting the pencil weight put a tiny bit of color. All right, and then I want to grab the deep rose color. And I'm doing the same thing. Just a little tiny bit of color. Because these are seashells, right? So they're supposed to be, you know, sort of different colors. I have no idea how these are going to turn out. So that you're going to see it just like I do. So I'm just going to and if we don't like it, we can always go back when it's dry and add more colors. Maybe there needs to be a blue in it, or... Alright, so when those are dry, they'll just look like little, you know, pink and sort of gray seashells. They're not very exciting, but I don't want them to be, because I don't want the background taking away from the, you know, the main focal point. But, you know, I want to color them in. Yeah, those need some blue in them or something. They're just, blech. I should have probably waited and done, because those are some pretty diverse colors. I should probably have waited to do those layer by layer. But that's how we learn. All of these colors blended into each other, and I lost the definition of the pinks and purples. And so you can fix that by not doing what I did, not trying to put all those colors down at once, but rather do it in layers and be patient. I got impatient is really what happened. All right, now we can make our little fish very colorful, because I don't want to make them orange. I don't want to pop them out, but they could actually be yellow. Well, let's try making them cadmium yellow. So I'll do that. Maybe make them yellow with, I can hear you shouting at me, yellow with something. Yellow with, well, let's try yellow with golden bits. We're also going to add a little bit of gold down here, just to give that a little bit more. Once again, I want them to be colored, but I don't want them to take away from our mermaid as the center of attention. So, of course I can add their little black eyes in later. I don't want to redirect the attention away from the intended target of the artist, which is the angels. After all, the book is called Sacred Angels. Oh, I like it. I like yellow. Okay. That was a good choice. I've redeemed 2 points from my poor choice on the on the shelf. That's what happens when I try and get fancy. I should have just let them layer like I should have. That's okay. I will try and fix them. So, hopefully, and I just wanted to show you how I was dealing with the light in this picture, trying to interpret sunshine through water, using Inktense, how to come up with a sand color, how to do a little bit of tweaking of colors, making mistakes, that I end up having to fix. So these are the types of things that I'm hoping that I can convey to you that'll make your Inktense more accessible to you. Once again, Inktense are a medium. You either love them or you hate them. There doesn't seem to be any in between. A lot of people are intimidated by them. They are, in fact, my favorite medium of all time. I enjoy coloring with Inktense more than any other product, but that's just, I mean, I like them. What can I say? And they're not for everybody, but if they're for you, they'll tell you. They'll jump up, they'll grab you, and they'll say, use me. Use me, use me. So I hope that this sort of gives you an idea of using your tools, these particular tools. I will come back and we'll do another video using different tools, and maybe they won't like me as well, or maybe you think that Inktense didn't like me on this one. But I gotta say that from my point of view, I'm loving this, and I hope that you color something pretty. Hopefully, I'll just grab one. It'll be something from one of my books, like maybe that. We did this with Inktense. I just like to show this off. I cannot take credit for this color palette. This color palette is, I simply reinterpreted a coloring that had been done by one of the fans from my fan group. This was her color interpretation, right down to, you know, doing, I don't even remember how we did this modeled vase at this point in time. I'd have to go back and look at the video. But, so, until we meet again, please color something pretty. Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining me today.